Hello friends, this is Adam with Movie Guy 365. Warner Brothers is celebrating 100 years in 2023, so here's what I would like to see them release on 4K Blu-ray this year. If you're new to the channel, please hit the like button, subscribe, hit that bell notification. You can also find me over Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at Movie Guy 365. Okay, in this video, I'm going to talk about Warner Brothers and how they're celebrating their 100th anniversary in 2023, and what I would like to see from the studio put out on 4K Blu-ray this year. As we all know, Warner Brothers as a studio has a wealth of catalog titles at their disposal, both in-house and acquired properties, and for the 100th anniversary, this is my own personal list of movies in that back catalog that I would love to see made into 4K releases. This list is not in any particular order, so my number one is not going to be my number one necessarily, but these are 10 movies that I feel would really make great 4K releases, and honestly, I could have done a whole 50 titles and have room for many, many more. And I'm also not going to talk about some of the titles that were sort of soft announced in the initial 100-year press release, such as Enter the Dragon is apparently getting a 4K this year, The Exorcist, the Christopher Reeve Superman films, the remaining sequels, and, so I'm just going to leave these off the list because they're sort of confirmed. And also movies like Seven, which was given a soft announcement as well, is coming to 4K. And recently, the Oceans trilogy, which was given 4K digital releases over on Netflix, I believe. So I'm going to leave all those titles out, but every single one of them I would absolutely love and will pick up on 4K. And as always, I encourage you to write in the comments section below what you would love to see from Warner Brothers in their 100th anniversary on 4K. So let's not waste any more time. Let's dive into my first pick. Director Wolfgang Petersen has made some outstanding films in his career. The Never-Ending Story, for instance, which I would love to see get a 4K release here in the States. But I feel that Troy would really benefit from a new 4K edition. I think a restored transfer would be in top order, and the Blu-ray is a little bit dated. I own it. It looks okay, but give a picture a little bit of a brush up, and hey, let's throw in an Atmos track, and you would have a fantastic 4K experience. So this one is going to be a little bit, I would say, not as popular as maybe some of the other titles in my list, but I really firmly believe that Troy is long overdue for a 4K full restoration, do a complete workup, and maybe Warner Brothers will make this a reality in the coming year. My next pick is admittedly more of a sentimental one, but nonetheless, I still want to see a 4K edition of Little Shop of Horrors. I remember when I first saw this one. It was on my birthday. We went to the theater. I had a whole group of friends with me, and we had a really good time, and I've absolutely loved the movie ever since. I've owned the film in various formats over the years. If you old school people know the whole DVD drama back in the day when the alternate cut was put on there with or without Frank Oz's permission, that's kind of debatable. But then they did a full workup on that alternate ending, and it's now readily available on Blu-ray. So definitely upgrade this one. I think the palette alone would lend itself very well to an HDR bump. And Dolby Atmos with Audrey 2 singing, that would be fantastic. Once again, more of a sentimental pick, and unfortunately musicals as a genre don't really get a whole lot of 4K love, but I think Warner Brothers would really sell a lot of these on 4K. So yeah, Little Shop of Horrors, I would absolutely love to see this one in the coming year. And of course on this list, I want to add some classic cinema. That just goes without saying, because on 4K, a lot of these older films really shine. In many cases, they're the biggest upgrade when compared to the more contemporary counterparts. And for this pick, I want to go with John Wayne starring in The Searchers. Westerns as a genre, I feel, gets not a whole lot of love, just like musicals on 4K, but when it happens, it's usually met with really good results. The recent release of Kino Lorber's The Man with No Name trilogy and High Plains Drifter really show what an old-style Western can do for the format. And I would love to see it because it's such an epic style of film. And just to get that whole Western landscape with a good HDR grading, I think would really just sell the formats to people that may be a little hesitant when it comes to Westerns and 4K upgrades. So yeah, The Searchers, I would love to see it on 4K. Maybe Warner Brothers already has this one in the chamber, who knows? But yeah, definitely make this one happen. Over the past couple years, Universal has been releasing Alfred Hitchcock films on 4K, and they have been all really great transfers. And for Warner Brothers, they're sitting on one of his best films, and that is North by Northwest. What can I say? I would be just completely thrilled and probably blown away by a 4K upgraded transfer of this classic film. It has such a great visual style. And hey, if we're feeling a little saucy, throw in an upgrade, you know, audio-wise. I think the airplane sequence alone, I think would really just add that extra dimension to the film. I love this movie. It is a shame we don't have it on 4K, but I suspect probably either it's this year or maybe next for one of the major anniversaries of the film. I think a 4K of this is going to happen, but I would love to see it for this particular year, celebrating the 100th anniversary of Warner Brothers. So maybe we'll get lucky and see it. Martin Scorsese is one of the most prolific filmmakers out there. He still puts out wonderful films that are just great, thought-provoking movies, compelling crime dramas, or just historical epics. And for this next one, I feel The Departed definitely should get a 4K upgrade. I know I've mentioned this title in previous videos, but let's make it happen for the 100th anniversary over at Warner Brothers. Of course, Leonardo DiCaprio, Matt Damon, Jack Nicholson, really a great crime drama. I don't feel it's an underrated movie, but when you compare it to some of Scorsese's other works, it sometimes gets a little bit lost in the shuffle. And also, the Blu Ray, it's a little bit dated. It could definitely use some touch-ups here and there. The Departed is still one of my favorite Scorsese films. It's definitely in my top 5 in a 4K edition. And yes, upgrade the audio when you can, but I would love to see The Departed make it to 4K. Out of all the movies on this list, this next group of titles, and yeah, that's a little bit of a spoiler, definitely needs some TLC because the Blu-rays are dated, and I mean dated both visually and audio-wise. So, the Lethal Weapon films, they need 4K upgrades, and badly. These are some classic 80s, early 90s action films. You know, Mel Gibson and Danny Glover, Joe Pesci. Really, I mean, come on. The Blu-ray situation alone, it warrants a 4K upgrade, but just for the love of the movies, they really are just great action films, and they're fun and they're energetic, and they really they do have like the whole buddy cop thing down perfected. These movies hold a personal place in my heart for great films just to watch on a Saturday afternoon back in the old cable days. And I have owned every format version of the films since, but yes, please just upgrade these immediately, both visually and audio wise, and I know a lot of fans would enjoy that as well. This next one I know is on a lot of people's list for 4K upgrade, mine included. And I think with the announcement recently of the sequel sort of reboot coming, I could see this one getting the 4K treatment either this year or to coincide with the release of the sequel. And that is Twister. Twister is one of those movies that has a great visual style that would look fantastic with an HDR upgrade. And as far as the audio goes, unless you provide an upgraded Atmos, it's sort of like a GTFO situation, because why even bother if you're just going to saddle us with the 5.1 from earlier releases? So an Atmos upgraded version of Twister is definitely something that a lot of fans would enjoy. I'm very hopeful, and I'm pretty certain it's coming eventually, but I would love to see it for the 2023 release schedule. This next 4K release, I believe, was initially announced at some point and then sort of canceled, towards the 11th hour. Something had to do with the transfer not being approved by the director, or they couldn't get elements for the new 4K grading on this. But it's a new year. It's been a few years since that whole thing happened, but I would love to see a 4K edition of Gravity finally arrive. I know a lot of fans have been asking for a 4K edition of this one. And the 3D edition is also just beautiful. It's probably one of my favorite 3Ds out there. It's really great. But for those that just have a 2D TV and not 3D capability, a 4K would really shine. With HDR, it would make that blackness of space just rich and deep. And audio-wise, I believe there's an Atmos out there, or DTS:X. So if you just want to port that over to the 4K, I think everybody would be pretty much happy and kind of call it a day. Maybe one day we'll see this one. I'm hopeful for the 100th anniversary we'll finally make it happen, so Gravity absolutely makes the list. Now, I know I said I wasn't going to add Superman to this list, and I'm going to stay true to that, but this next pick is sort of Superman adjacent, and it's also animated. And the Iron Giant, I think, would really be a great 4K. The upgrade is I feel something that could definitely benefit the film. With HDR, it would just make that animation style pop. And let's go ahead and upgrade the audio as well, because there's a lot of great scenes throughout the film that would really make great use of it. I am a huge fan of this movie. It is also one of those that I don't feel gets nearly enough love. But I did want to add one animated film, if possible, to this list, and I could think of no other better one than The Iron Giant. If you haven't checked it out, definitely do so. It's a really fantastic film. Vin Diesel does the voice work, like kind of an early role for him. But yeah, a 4K edition of The Iron Giant I feel is way overdue, so I would love to see this happen in 2023. And for my final pick, we all love Christopher Nolan as a filmmaker, and I would love to see Insomnia finally get a 4K upgrade. This movie, I feel, is one of his lesser known films, and if you know Nolan movies on 4K, they're usually visually some of the best out there. They look stunning. He squeezes every bit out there just to give you the best visual presentation. Yeah, he doesn't favor Atmos at all, really, at least when it comes to home releases. It's usually relegated to a 5.1, but those are some punchy 5.1 mixes. So if we don't get an upgraded audio, it wouldn't be the worst in the world. But for me personally, Insomnia is a beautiful looking movie despite the subject matter. It can be a little bit gloomy at times, but I think with HDR appropriately applied, it would look fantastic. I do hope that we see this one in the coming year, and for Warner Brothers celebrating their 100th anniversary, I'm hopeful it will happen. So those are just 10 movies that I would love to see Warner Brothers make into 4K Blu-rays in the coming year, celebrating their 100th anniversary. Honestly, I could have put many more titles on this list. Their catalog is almost second to none, and they are a great supporter of the 4K format, so I'm hopeful that at least some of the movies on this list will make it this year, if not in the next year or two. That would be fantastic. But now I want to hear from you in the comments. What would you put on your most wanted list from the Warner Brothers catalog? In the meantime, please like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. So until next time, this is Adam with Movie Guy 365. I will see you at the movies.